Hey y'all, it's Taylor, and this is the 2024 iPad Pro 13-inch. It's the thinnest device Apple has ever made at just 5.1 millimeters thick. It's got the brand new M4 chip that's based on TSMC's 3nm architecture, meaning it's much more power efficient. Apple is claiming it's up to 1.5 times faster than M2 computationally and up to 4 times faster graphically. M4 brings ray tracing and AV1 acceleration to iPad Pro, and it can also edit up to 5 streams of 4K ProRes footage. If that wasn't impressive enough, Apple introduced their brand new Tandem OLED screen for both the 11-inch and 13-inch. This finally brings OLED to the iPad Pro while also achieving 1000 nits of full screen brightness in SDR and 1600 nits of peak brightness in HDR. The screen also reaches 120 Hz, which is driven by VRR, or variable refresh rate. As you might have guessed, these features don't come cheap. With my iPad being configured with 256 gigs of storage, the new Apple Pencil Pro, and the new Magic Keyboard, it came out to $1,964 US, which includes Apple Care. That's a ton of money to drop on the iPad Pro, and I have some thoughts. This video is not sponsored, so if you'd like to support the channel, hit that like button and subscribe. One of the first things I was interested in was this new Tandem OLED screen, and it's the best OLED screen I've ever used. It gets super bright, the colors in both SDR and HDR are stunning, the white balance mapping is perfect, and the response times are noticeably quick. I hooked this iPad up to my color calibrator and it measured a delta E of 1.19, which makes it great for professional color work. The iPad Pro is a photo editing beast, especially when paired with the Apple Pencil Pro, for fine-tuning your images with Lightroom settings. Another thing that absolutely blew me away was the size and weight of this iPad Pro. It's 5.1 millimeters thick and weighs 583 grams, just the iPad by itself. For being so thin, it's incredibly robust. There's no bending, creaking, flexing, none of that on this iPad Pro. This rigidity inspires a lot of confidence that throwing the iPad in a packed bag, I'm not gonna risk damaging it. One concern I had with how thin it was the battery life, but Apple seems to have figured that out too, because this iPad runs all day, even with the battery health governor set to a max of 80% charge to get the maximum battery health. With its thin design, the Apple Pencil Pro does have a tendency to kind of fly off, so just be careful with that. I fired up Final Cut Pro for iPad to stretch the M4's legs. I assembled a small video from clips I captured at DreamHack in Dallas. All of these are 4K 10-bit 422 clips from my Sony ZV-E1, which takes a lot of processing power to work with. The M4 handles them in the timeline very well, as I'm able to scrub through the footage with ease. I wanted to put the claim up to 5 streams of 4K footage to the test, but it seems that that's limited to the 1TB and 2TB iPad Pros with 1 additional core and 16 gigs of RAM, opposed to my configuration that has 8 gigs of RAM, in which case I was only able to achieve 4 streams of 4K footage. And keep in mind, this isn't ProRes footage, this is .h.265, but 4 streams is plenty for me. While we're on the topic of M4 power, let's look at some synthetic benchmarks. In Geekbench 6, my M4 got a score of 3,713 in single core, 13,268 in multi-core, which is faster than my M1 Max, and the Metal GPU score of 54,009. Running the Antutu benchmark, the iPad got a score of 2,619,327. I'm sure with all that power, some of you are going to be interested in gaming on the iPad Pro, and I can happily report that the M4 crushes everything. Every game I've tried, from Balloons Tower Defense 6 to Death Stranding, all run at maximum graphics. I love how customizable the graphics are in Genshin Impact, and you can bring it all the way up to 120 Hz. You can also do the same in Call of Duty Mobile. Resident Evil 4 shows off that HDR extremely well with its dark scenes. However, even with the brightness on these new Tandem OLEDs, the reflections of the screen make viewing dark scenes extremely difficult in direct sunlight, like I demonstrate here at the lake. Regardless of where you play, I do recommend you connect a controller to the iPad, since the control interface on screen for games is quite obtrusive and not at all easy to interact with. With my iPad purchase, I also got the new Apple Pencil Pro, which I wasn't expecting to like as much as I did. The new haptics feel great and add a degree of feedback to the pencil, like squeezing it for the context menu wheel or double tapping to switch between pen and eraser. It's got a gyro, so you can barrel roll it to change the orientation of your brush. I don't do any artwork, but I have been using it for taking notes, and it's really been a joy to use. I also purchased the new Magic Keyboard since most of my computer use is either on a laptop or a gaming computer. Apple has updated the hinge in the keyboard to be all aluminum, and it has a USB-C port for charging. This port isn't USB 4, so things like external hard drives, docks, or monitors won't work on this port. The keyboard deck is all aluminum with a larger glass touchpad. This really does feel more like a 13-inch MacBook Air would, and the keys feel really nice to type on. The keyboard also has a function row at the top now with dedicated keys for media, brightness, an exploded open app view key, a lock button, and even an escape key. The iPad Pro connects via these magnets on these pogo pins, and when on the keyboard stand, you'll notice that the camera on the iPad Pro is now landscape, making it much better for video calls. All right, I'm trying Photo Booth since Zoom didn't seem to want to record audio, but this is how the audio sounds and how the video looks in the new iPad. I'm going left to right to show you that Photo Booth doesn't support center stage, but this is how the new camera looks and sounds. The whole keyboard setup makes the iPad feel more like a laptop, but don't expect it to be without its annoyances. For instance, there are some keyboard shortcuts like Control-Command-Q, which locks the iPad, but there's no Command Q for quitting apps like you can do on Mac OS. The escape key almost has no use at all. I'd expect it to close full screen videos, but this rarely ever works. The keyboard stand is great for use with the keyboard and touchpad, but when I want to take out the Apple Pencil Pro to jot down notes, I have to take the iPad off the stand to get a comfortable writing position. I just kind of wish the keyboard stand would fold 360 degrees to avoid doing this, as that would also provide some padding between the iPad and whatever surface I'm writing on. On the topic of using the iPad like a laptop, don't expect this to replace your laptop if you're doing any sort of coding. There's no support for native IDEs or Docker, so building apps with the iPad just isn't going to be feasible right now. Using the iPad in sidecar mode with the Mac is a really enjoyable experience with coding since the screen is so sharp and color accurate. After having used the iPad for almost a month now, I really like the combination of power and portability that it offers. The Apple Pencil Pro is very unique to the iPad, and it fits in so nicely for drawing and taking notes. The Apple keyboard is a nice way to make the iPad more like a laptop, with a lot of the shortcomings being iPadOS itself. Would I pay nearly $2,000 for another iPad? Okay, I could get a 15-inch MacBook Air with an M3, 16 gigs of RAM, and 512 gigabytes of storage with AppleCare for $1,928 US, which is less than what I paid for this whole combination of iPad. So for my use cases being coding and video editing, I would go MacBook Air instead. I'm interested to hear how you're using the iPad. Let me know in the comments below. Be sure to leave a like if you like the video and subscribe if you want to see more. Thank you so much for watching, and I'll see you all in the next one.